In the heartland of America, where tales of grit and hard-earned living resonate in every rust-bitten corner, lay the quaint town of Gary, Indiana. Nestled within this timeless landscape, like an antique brooch forgotten in the folds of a worn-out coat, Gary carried an aura of the past's spectral residues. Its skyline, punctuated by the quiet rhythm of chimney smoke and encroached by the graying cornfields, held a peculiar charm, the enchanting silence of a forgotten ballad echoing through the ages. Upon this stage of suspended time emerged the figure of Samuel Grayson, graying hair swept back in a modest attempt at order, eyes carrying the depth of oceans tempered by trials of life, his silent presence as profound as the town itself. There was a tranquility about him, a quietude that was born of countless nights embracing solitude, watching life unfold in the flickering shadows of mysteries brought to his desk. Samuel's life was a symphony composed in the key of hardship, defined by the constant dance with the reaper, a melody punctuated by the relentless toll of an illness that once threatened to unmake him. He bore the scars of this struggle not as marks of defeat, but as symbols of resilience, badges earned in the harsh trials of existence. Yet this battle-hardened soul found solace not in the bright lights of triumphant victory, but in the ceaseless pursuit of truth. And the whispers that brought him to Gary promised just that, a mystery woven in the spectral tales of a town that time seemed to have left untouched. The locus of these tales was the town's pride, an antiquated museum that carried the weight of history within its limestone bones. He stood before it, gazing at the structure with a sincere curiosity, each crevice, weather-beaten brick, and archaic cornice whispering tales of yore. Conversations with the locals, filled with furtive glances and anxious whispers, painted a tableau of disquiet. The museum's alive after dark, an old tavern keeper had confided, his voice barely above a whisper. Seems like history ain't the only thing residing there. Samuel nodded, offering a kindly, reassuring smile that belied the churn of anticipation within him. His first encounter with the spectral apparitions was as subtle as a fleeting shadow, a fleeting glimpse in the corner of his eye that vanished as soon as he turned his gaze. A sense of unease permeated the air as he navigated the cobweb-laced corridors of the museum, the deafening silence interrupted by the occasional creak of aging timber and echo of his footsteps, an audible heartbeat in an otherwise lifeless vessel. As the sun cast long, spectral shadows over the museum, the first day of his investigation came to a close. He was left in the fading twilight, the quiet rhythm of his breathing syncing with the whispering wind. His heart whispered of the mysteries yet to unfold, his soul aflame with the thirst for truth. A solitary figure gazing into the heart of the enigmatic, ready to dance with phantoms in the silence of Gary's haunted museum. As dawn's pale light clawed through the cobweb-laced windows of the old museum, Samuel stood poised at the entrance, steeped in anticipation. The whispers of the night before hung heavily in the air, the echoes of spectral apparitions calling out from the abyss of forgotten history. He stepped inside, the sturdy oak doors creaking open to reveal a trove of antiquity, rooms filled with relics and curios, their silent narratives bleeding into the very air. The architecture was a tableau of epochs long gone, from Greek columns to Victorian frescoes, converging in a jumbled mosaic of centuries layered over each other. The scent of aged parchment, faded oil paints, and forgotten tales wafted in the stagnant air, a distinct perfume of lingering time. He moved with reverent curiosity, each object of historical significance holding his gaze, their silent stories weaving a tapestry of a bygone era. A cracked Ming vase carried the whispers of distant Oriental winds. A worn-out Confederate uniform bore the weight of a divided nation, and an array of faded daguerreotypes wore faces frozen in the finality of a captured moment. Yet there was an undercurrent of something more, an unseen specter in this cavern of antiquity. Every artifact seemed to shimmer in an ethereal glow, an uncanny luminescence that came alive in the corners of his vision. The air felt denser, each step echoed a little louder, each breath seemed a little harder to draw. The halls were not just haunted, they were alive. Parallel to his exploration, he found the townsfolk increasingly peculiar. their personalities twisted in strange manners, their laughter hollow, their gaze distant. There was a certain dissonance in their speech, a duality that was as unsettling as it was intriguing. "You know, Mr. Grayson," Clara, the town's librarian, said, her voice trembling like an autumn leaf caught in the wind, "the museum, it changes people. Folks, they ain't the same once they've been there after dark." Her words rang in his ears as he returned to the museum, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of blood and gold. The silent corridors took on a sinister persona, each shadow a lurking phantom, each echo a ghostly whisper. As he turned a corner, a spectral silhouette loomed at the end of a dimly lit hallway, a figure as tangible as the darkness that birthed it. His heart pounded in his chest, his instincts screaming to look away, but his gaze remained fixed, riveted by the ethereal presence. But as suddenly as it appeared, it vanished, swallowed by the gaping maw of darkness, leaving him alone once more in the haunted halls. Thus concluded his second day in Gary, the spectral encounter marking a chilling turn in his investigation. He was no longer just a spectator, but an actor in this unfolding narrative of phantoms and silence, a play scripted in the haunted halls of Gary's antique museum. The first ray of dawn peeked through the town of Gary, painting an unassuming serenity over the antiquated landscape. Samuel, however, woke with a tangible sense of unease. The echoes of the spectral apparition etched deeply into his consciousness. He carried this restless energy into the haunted museum. The relics, once silent witnesses of human history, now seemed imbued with an uncanny resonance. They were no longer just tokens of the past. They were enigmatic pieces in a confounding puzzle. Each room, each artifact pulsated with an energy that thrummed against his senses, an alien symphony composed in an unknown key. Amid this symphony, he noticed the strange behavior of the townsfolk increasingly concerning. There was an unsettling uniformity to their demeanor, their conversations laced with incongruous phrases and expressions, a duality that gnawed at his seasoned intuition. "Morning, Samuel," greeted Mayor Hawthorne, his smile broad yet mechanical. "Splendid day for an exploration of the past, wouldn't you say?" His words felt oddly rehearsed, his laughter devoid of warmth. The townsfolk were no longer simply residents of this quaint town. They were marionettes in a twisted pantomime, their strings pulled by an unseen puppeteer. As he realized the extent of the phenomenon, a chilling dread wrapped around him, an icy grip that echoed the terror of his past illness. The comfort of solitude had morphed into a cloak of isolation, and Gary no longer seemed quaint, but a nightmarish reality. Despite the creeping terror, he dove deeper into the mystery. The haunted museum felt more oppressive with each visit, a living, breathing entity resonating with otherworldly vibrations. Yet, in this unsettling environment, a breakthrough emerged. Each apparition he encountered was a former resident, their spectral forms entrapped within the museum walls. With this revelation, he found himself staring into the abyss of an alien horror. Dawn's tender light had always been a balm for Samuel, a promise of a new day, a new mystery to unfold. However, that day, dawn felt like an accomplice to the unfolding horror, its soft rays casting long, monstrous shadows in the corners of the haunted museum. He stood at the precipice of the abyss he had uncovered, a world controlled by parasitic entities, an alien nightmare puppeteering the townsfolk, turning them into spectral prisoners. His once quiet pursuit of truth had morphed into a desperate struggle for survival in the jaws of madness. His steps echoed hollowly through the museum halls, each footfall a heartbeat in this beast of stone and shadow. The spectral apparitions were now visible without the veil of night, their ethereal forms wailing silently, cries for help resonating in the chilling silence. Outside the limestone walls of the museum, the once charming town of Gary took on a macabre persona. The townsfolk moved mechanically, their bodies functioning with an eerie precision, their eyes vacant of the vibrant life he had initially observed. Conversations with the possessed residents were increasingly horrifying, their voices holding an unnatural timbre, their laughter a grotesque parody of human joy. "Good to see you, Samuel," the baker's words rang out, empty and hollow. Gary's never been livelier. Every interaction was a dance with terror, each moment a tightening noose of alien horror. Yet he forged ahead, his resilience confronting the terror that had consumed his quiet solitude. As the chilling realization of his own vulnerability dawned upon him, his past battles with his life-threatening illness seemed to echo in this cosmic dance of terror. The specter of death that once loomed over him now had a new face, an alien entity stripping away the humanity around him. His escape from the museum was not a triumphant exodus, but a torturous crawl through the haunted halls. The once silence-filled corridors now roared with the unseen terror, the echoes of spectral cries following him, a chilling requiem for the lost souls. He emerged from the museum into the embrace of twilight, a lone figure against the backdrop of a possessed town. But as he left Gary, he took with him an unseen burden, the profound transformation etched into his being by his harrowing experience. His quiet demeanor was no longer just an aspect of his personality. It was a testament to the cosmic horror he'd witnessed, a silent scream in the abyss of the unseen universe. The spectral apparitions, the puppeteered townsfolk, the parasitic entities, they were no longer just parts of a haunting tale, but an indelible part of his own story. As he disappeared into the night, leaving behind the town of Gary, the haunted museum, and the altered lives, he was no longer just a private investigator. He was a survivor in the vast, terrifying expanse of cosmic horror. His journey ended not with an exclamation of victory, but with the quiet acceptance of his transformation. A kind, sincere, and quiet man, forever marked by his dance in the jaws of madness. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like it and subscribe to our channel, where you can find more similar stories, and click on the bell icon to never miss one. There is plenty more cosmic horror to come from the Eldritch Tales Factory. Stay tuned, and until next time.